So what's your podcast about?
Superheroes.
It's a little geeky, but I think you guys are gonna like it.
Try not to be too geeky.
No, I can't promise that.
Should we begin?
It's a bird. It's a plane. It's the Geek and You Shall Find podcast. And now, your hosts, Kelsey Dickerson, Brad Fay, Kate Fay, and Noah Berlin.
Hold on to your butts.
All right, welcome to the Geek and You Shall Find podcast powered by Superhero Faces. The entire team is back with you today. We've got Brad and Kate, we've got Kelsey and myself, and we are here to talk with you about the season 2 finale of House of the Dragon. But we're going to try to keep the talk centered around this episode as a whole, not really the whole season yet, but this episode had a lot of Easter eggs. There were so many book references and callbacks to Game of Thrones. So this is your last warning. If you've not seen the episode yet, definitely still watch our podcast right now or listen to our podcast, but go make sure you watch the episode before coming back here. But guys, see, I'm personally really conflicted because if you were to ask me what I thought about the episode and then ask me if I was satisfied with it as a finale, those would be two very different answers for me. Mm-hmm. So did this seem like it was a finale to you?
Not until about the last 5 minutes.
And really, even that, this almost seemed like a mid-season episode to me. It was a lot of setup, and it's very annoying because, I feel like season 1 ended with, a lot of setup. They're still preparing for war, and it's we've had 2 whole seasons of them, preparing for war. It's, kind of done, kind of over it.
There's a good tweet I saw where it just says, House of the Dragon season 1 ending, now the war begins. House of the Dragon season 2 ending, now the war begins.
It's so true.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm trying to think of Game of Thrones was like that too. I remember, and I know we'll get into it, but that like Kate said, to me that last sequence obviously was well done and made me nostalgic of Game of Thrones, and thinking of how every season would end. And I got that picture of when Daenerys's fleet was heading towards Westeros at that finale,
the music.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of that a little bit, but yeah, like you said, we kind of have had that, last season, we thought okay, it's getting ready to go down now.
Yeah, I think that it was similar. I think this was similar to a finale of Game of Thrones, but usually with Game of Thrones, the episode prior to that was a huge set piece, heavy action, heavy plot movement, and so the finale was maybe, a come down from that and then a setup for the next season where we didn't get that action-packed one before this, so it just seemed a little out of place. I think, Kelsey, your take of it seeming like a mid-season finale definitely sounds about right. People were saying that it seemed like this should have been 10 episodes and this would have been a good episode 8 if there were 10 episodes in the season. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, did that affect, though, the way that you thought of the episode? Were you allowed, or did you think of it as an episode, just a self-contained episode, and let your opinions be known about that? Or was it really too affected by the fact that this was the finale?
I don't know if I was too affected by that because I already knew that there was way too much that was going to happen that I knew we weren't going to have anything big. I'd kind of already been, I don't want to say let down, but it wasn't the last episode ended on a huge cliffhanger where I was yo, the next episode is just going to be insanity and we're going to get all the craziness. Nothing they've done this season has led me to get my expectations there. So I kind of knew, I'm I guess we're just going to have a lot more setting up and stuff, so I don't think I really went into it expecting a lot of stuff to get resolved, especially knowing we were getting another season 2.
Mm-hmm. Well, give me out of 10. Give me a ranking on this episode, not the season, just this episode out of 10.
You're not gonna like it. I really dislike this episode. I
Wow.
know yeah, I'm very low on this episode. I'm at a 3.
Wow, that's very surprising.
And you know me, I'm the biggest Game of Thrones apologist ever. I'll defend season 8 to the death, and I thought the last season of Game of Thrones was cool. I thought this was really, really bad.
What about you, Kate? What's your number?
I was gonna give it a 6.
Huh.
I agree with that, Kate. I would say 6 because going back to like, this as a finale, I thought like as an episode, it was really good. We do learn a lot of things. It was shot really well. It was really beautiful. But I would almost prefer that they ended on the last episode with Rhaenyra and all her dragons, like, and
Mm,
Vhagar turning around. That would be more of a season finale to me. And then this one, like an episode 1 set up for like
yeah.
season 3.
Hell
Um,
yeah.
it just felt really flat to me, and like that it wasn't like a season finale, especially now that we got to wait another 2 years. But I agree with the 6 rating. What did you think, Noah?
Yeah, see, I'm trying really hard to separate it and think about it just as an episode and to rank it just like we would rank any other episode and not take into account too much that, like, okay, this is the finale. It's supposed to be a capstone of the whole season. Like, just look at it independently as a self-contained episode. But I mean, I really liked this episode. Like, this is, I mean, easily my second favorite episode of the season, I think, and one of my favorites of the series. A lot of it because I was able to really nerd out with some of the things and the visions that we're gonna dig into that here shortly. But I'll say an 8. I really liked this one.
I knew by your text. I was like,
Yeah.
Noah's gonna be very disappointed
I,
when
I'm not disappointed. I'm just surprised.
No,
I'm
I just mean
surprised, but
in
I
me being like, yeah, man, I did not like it. It makes for a good like discussion, but I was
totally
like, I am not where Noah is at with this episode.
okay. Well,
There was
everybody.
pieces that were really good. Like, and you said like a lot of Easter eggs and like callbacks to Game of Thrones, which were like really exciting to see. But then there was so many other things that like I have such a problem with.
Well, I can't wait to get into it with you. But everybody, even though this is the finale, we are not done breaking down House of the Dragon season 2 with you. We're going to be back next week with a bonus episode where we're going to dive deep into the season as a whole. We're going to give our rankings, or not our rankings, our awards for everything the season. And we do have a lot of opinions on this season as a whole, from the pacing to the structure to the visuals, the character arcs. So a lot to talk about in this next one. Make sure to stick with us for that. But without further ado, let's get into our episode recap. So in this one, Tywin Lannister arrived in Essos to negotiate with the Triarchy and gets more than he bargained for. Aemond lashes out and burns Sharp Point, laying waste to the town. He's completely unhinged and tries to convince Helena to fly her dragon to battle. Daemon passes his final exam from Alice and is deemed worthy of a final vision centered around the Song of Ice and Fire. Helena flexes her abilities as a dreamer. Rhaenyra flies to Harrenhal to confront Daemon, and he bends the knee to his queen. Alicent sneaks into Dragonstone to talk to Rhaenyra one more time, and the two friends strike a bargain. Larys smuggles Aegon out of King's Landing, and Otto is shown as a prisoner. And then we see a montage of all the characters finally preparing for war, set to an incredible score, seemingly essentially a couple minute long trailer for season 3. So yeah, I mean, that was the episode. I left out of that some of the plot points and the story points that I didn't like in this episode, but I think the thing that I want to start on for sure is just kind of the culmination of Daemon's arc, where that fits in with everything else that we've seen here in this show in House of the Dragon, in Game of Thrones that we've seen, and a lot of references to the books, of which I'll try to shed some light on some, the importance on certain characters that we see there. So this one, I got 3 different texts from people to start. Daemon follows Alice into the Godswood. And I guess I was not paying attention the first time I watched this, but he sees what the closed caption is called an altered human shape. Did you guys see that thing?
Yes. I was like, what was that?
People were texting me and I was like, what the hell are you talking? Like, I had
I
no
missed
idea.
it both times. I forgot when we watched it the first time. I
Yeah.
rewatched it. Kate didn't get to rewatch it. I forgot, like, I like looked over at Parker real quick and Kate just went, I'm like, what the fuck? And I was like, what? And she was like, weird creature. And I'm
I was
like,
like, it was a
whatever.
creature. It was scurrying.
Yeah, I'm like, whatever. I'm sure they'll show it again. And then they didn't. And then
Nope.
I forgot about it when I rewatched it and I didn't even see it the second time.
Yeah, it was weird. I mean, it looked like you couldn't hardly see it, but it was like a human's body, and then it looked like a deer. Like it had
Antlers,
you can
yeah.
see like antlers.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. I have some guesses, which I'll get to in a moment, of what that could be, but that was very strange. But so, we'll get to it. He approaches. They go in the Godswood with Alice. Alice, she says to him, "All your life you sought to command your own fate, but today you're ready." So, like to me, this is like, okay, finally, after a season of being parked there, a season of having all these visions and going through shit, he finally passed the exam, and now he can see like the real vision that everything was building up to. So, hi, Parker. Parker's woke up from a nap. She's excited to break down the visions too. But so anyway, he approaches the heart tree, and the heart trees all have the faces carved into them. And this one, actually, did you see that the face on this tree is supposed to be George R. R. Martin?
Oh no, I did not get that at
Oh,
all.
Yeah, like you couldn't tell in the show, but they made a big deal in the behind the scenes of like they brought him out and they like used his face as the mold to carve into this specific tree. So anyway, a little fun fact. But um so he touches the bloody eyes on the tree, and it just goes into a vision where it's like very boom, boom, boom. It starts with seeing the Blood Raven, who is the three-eyed raven from Game of Thrones. We'll talk about him more in depth in a second. His birthmark literally turns into the three-eyed raven, which flies to the screen. Then he sees a warg vision of a White Walker army, dead armies, the dead dragons, sees himself drowning. He sees a red meteor and then the three eggs that are Daenerys's. Then you see the back of Daenerys birthing the three dragons, which was very cool to see in a different kind of angle. I'm assuming implying there that Dany is the prince or princess who was promised. And then it ends with Rhaenyra on the throne. But then the strangest part out of all of it to me was that they show Helena, who says, "It's all a story, and you're but one part in it. You know your part. You know what you must do." I was really confused as to why Helena chose to speak to Damon and the way that like it went straight from that to the scene of Helena like looking off in the distance. So it really heavily implied that she in real time was communicating with Damon. So like I'm curious what you think. Why do you think Helena chose to talk to him? Like what was the meaning behind that?
I don't know what the meaning was behind it, but the elevation, like the quick elevation and like her powers and like the control that it showed, like was really shocking to me because before it was like very cryptic, like maybe she had like some dreams or like
Mhm.
maybe there was like symbolism in like some of the things that she would say that obviously would come to light in like weird ways. But yeah, like it was almost like she's a warg kind of, right? Like, or I don't know how that works, but it was almost like she's connected with the three-eyed raven somehow, and I didn't really understand. But it must be that now she knows, like, okay, it seems well, that dream sequence to me, or like his like vision sequence to me, makes it seem like Daenerys descends from Team Black. So, and that Damon plays like a big role in it. So she must just see that, like, okay, like they need to like either win or like something needs to happen for this to all come to play and for Daenerys to be able to be, you know, who she ends up being in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I mean, it's all comes back to that the Song of Ice and Fire, the prince who was promised, the prophecy, and it all comes back to that. But it just the fact that Helena, because I mean, think about it. In episode 1 of this season, Damon is the reason that the blood and cheese came in and decapitated her little baby, and so like I mean, it's Damon's fault, and yet she's choosing now to communicate with him in a way that it seems like she's guiding him or helping him, and I thought that was just strange, and I'm curious why.
yeah. When she popped up, I was like, what is she doing here? Like this, it's all this like imagery of stuff from Game of Thrones that we've seen before. And that part was really cool, like you were just talking about. But then I was so confused why she showed up, and I still don't really know. But like as Kelsey was talking, I was like, well, maybe she seems so like not really there and kind of doesn't know what's going on, but maybe she like really knows way more than she's letting on. And she just wants peace, right? Like she doesn't want to fight. She doesn't want all this going on. So maybe she's like, okay, if I tell Damon, because he's at this like magical place, so I can talk to him. Maybe if I tell him, like this is your place to be loyal to Rhaenyra and fight for her, like maybe that we can kind of avoid this war. I don't know.
Do you
And-
think like the interaction with like her and Eamon and like how he was pushing her to fight and stuff like maybe tipped the scales a bit for her to want to be like, okay, you know what, then I'm gonna play my part and I'm gonna help. I don't know. That's like the only thing I can guess.
Well, before that, we see, Eamon pushing her. He's grabbing her by the arm. Allison's defending her. Allison's like, let's get out of here. And she's like, where would I go? So that doesn't happen. But then it ties in with that final scene with Allison and Rhaenyra where she's like, yeah, what's her name? Helena doesn't want to fight. We could do this in a way that would minimize or eliminate all the bloodshed and still kind of end the war. So maybe she's trying to move the pieces on her own that like maybe if Daemon does his own thing, there's no way to do that because now there's multiple factions, multiple battles, a lot of people dying. Whereas if he falls in line with Rhaenyra, maybe they're more likely to get out of this without all of the death.
I don't know, because when Eamon says to her, like he says to Helena, like I could kill you now, and she says it would change nothing. So I'm like, does that mean she doesn't play a part? Like maybe that was her only part to play is reaching out to Damon, and now like her part's done in like her eyes of like, well, at this point it doesn't matter anymore, or is it like the ripple effect of well, these things will play out, but they'll just play out slightly differently if you were to kill me.
Well, she said it. That was in response to him saying, I can kill you because she told him the prophecy of how he's going to die. And that's what like really freaked him out. And when he's like, she's like, yeah, you could kill me, but that's not going to change anything. Meaning like, it's not going to change how you die or what happens to you. So maybe she still does have other roles to play. But as far as he's concerned, like it's all unfolding in one way. But so I want to talk about the three-eyed raven who we know from Game of Thrones. He's called the Blood Raven too, and it's this dude, Brynden Rivers, who was a bastard Targaryen. And so he was the bastard son of King Aegon IV, not to be confused with King Aegon II, who is the one that's burnt to a crisp and had his dick explode, which we'll talk about later. But
I said that.
but so he's the bastard son of King Aegon IV. This dude was called Aegon the Unworthy, this king. He was known for just being awful. He had a ton of mistresses, and he fathered a bunch of bastards. So what he did on his deathbed was so fucking bad. Like we think that the way that Viserys handled the succession and like everything, all of this that's happening because of the way Viserys played things, we think that's bad. Like, no, this dude was way worse because he had all these bastards, and on his deathbed, he legitimized all of the bastards. So then all of them, like his firstborn or his heir, maybe was not the heir anymore because there would be older ones that are now legitimized. They're not bastards anymore. And so all of these people came out and are like, no, I should be the rightful king. I should be the rightful king. So it led to 5 generations of rebellions called the Blackfire rebellions. A lot of these bastards that are no longer bastards, they took the last name Blackfire now instead of being Rivers or Waters or Snow or Sand or whatever it is. So they were called the Blackfires. And it was, 5 generations, like I said, of rebellions there, marking the second Targaryen Civil War. And we talked to Kelsey last week about just all the little things that you see that led to the downfall of the Targaryens. This was a major one. And like, just because the king just decided to legitimize all of these bastards, like he did not need to do that. But anyway, so Brynden was one of these bastards that got legitimized. He was called the Blood Raven because he had this like large wine-colored birthmark on his neck and his face, which we saw in this episode, but they didn't use that for the character that we saw in Game of Thrones. But he was rumored to be like some sinister sorcerer. He had spells all the time. Like he manipulated people and was a master of whispers who had spies everywhere. So he just like was a very behind the scenes, like imagine like a Melisandre mixed with like a Littlefinger, but like much more involved because he was the hand to 2 kings. Eventually he was sent to the wall for crimes, and he was named Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. And eventually he just disappeared north of the wall. He became the Three-Eyed Raven, and the rest is history. Met Bran and all that good stuff. But also fun fact with him, he was the last person that had the sword Dark Sister, which is the Valyrian steel sword that Daemon has right now. So like, you know, it passes from person to person, and this dude, Brynden Rivers, the Blood Raven, was the last one to have Dark Sister. So just interesting there, and we see that like this dude is involved in a lot of shit. And seeing him portrayed this way, I think was pretty cool, because again, it was different how they showed him in Game of Thrones. Another one of the things that Damon sees is the red comet, and like I want to say, like, do you guys remember seeing that in Game of Thrones, like early seasons? Was that in
Yeah,
the
it was
show?
like first season.
Okay. Yeah, so I remember it being in the books, and again, let me just say right now, nothing will be spoiled from the Fire and Blood book, which this is based on, but we are digging into the other books, the Game of Thrones books and stuff like that right now. But the Red Comet, it was first seen at the end of book 1, which was titled A Game of Thrones, and it was seen in the beginning when a raven brings the news of the death of Ned Stark. So like all the Northerners, they consider it an omen that the gods are angry about that. Daenerys is seeing it at the same time, and that's a signal for her to walk into the funeral pyre with Drogo and bring the eggs in there, and it ultimately led to the dragons being reborn. And then in book 2, like, it's featured throughout the entire book, and every character all around the world is seeing this and all thinks it's something different, from guiding Daenerys through the desert to where she's going to just being interpreted differently through all these different characters. But it plays a major role in the books. So, all right, fine. Going back to Helena, though. So we talked about how it went straight from her appearing to Daemon to her being, you know, up in King's Landing and then getting confronted by Aemond. And she says to him straight up, "You will be dead. You were swallowed up in the God's eye, and you were never seen again." And Aemond was shook. So, like, yeah, Kelsey, you're totally right. She's obviously had these powers since the beginning, but it was super vague before, where she was just like spurting nonsense, and then it kind of was, you know, it was affecting or being related to something. But this, she's straight up like, she's good now. Like, she'll tell you everything. She knows what's going to happen. She's seen the death of people. And I just wonder how far reaching that goes.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that, to your point, like, she's just so clear. I don't know, like, this whole that like whole thing, like, I really liked it, but I'm like, I wish her character was like that all the time, like, because I thought it was super interesting. And this is the first time that you really see like Aemond like being like, fuck, like, I am like, holy shit, like, he's like scared, like, you know what I mean, like, and he is like frustrated, like, everything that happened, and like does all that, like, those crazy war crimes and stuff like that. So I'm actually really interested. I hope that carries on through season 3. I don't know if it will, or if she's like played her part, or whatever Aemon's gonna do to her, or whatever, or if she runs away or what. But I really enjoyed that sequence. It still doesn't make sense to me fully, but I liked it.
Yeah, I mean, there's like the Green Seers, which is like Bran. There's like wargs. There's all these supernatural things. Then there's dreamers, which I guess what she's supposed to be, a dreamer. But how that differs in terms of those powers compared to some of the other ones, I have no idea. But she definitely has, obviously, these powers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the last thing that I want to talk about and give a little history on is the God's Eye, which has now been talked about multiple times. If you see kind of like a wider shot of them in the Godswood at Harrenhal, like right behind the tree, there's like a large body of water there. I don't know if you've noticed that, but basically the God's Eye, like, that is the God's Eye. The God's Eye is a huge lake. It's the largest inland body of water in Westeros, and it's located in the dead center of the continent. So, like, it's special because of that. It's like the dead center of all of Westeros, and it's a big ass lake. And right in the middle of that lake is a little island directly in the center, and that island is called the Isle of Faces. So, that island is supposed to be home of green seers, or green men, who keep and protect the traditions of the children of the forest, which we saw with Bran and Game of Thrones. So, like, that is a very important role with that. And so that's what I'm thinking, that like deer thing was like one of these green men or green somethings who are like, they protect the weirwood trees. But the island is said to be home of a ton of these weirwood trees, all of which are carved with the faces. But the reason I bring that up specifically is because now we've seen Alice earlier in an episode, in one of the earliest episodes, saying, "You're gonna die here." Like, meaning at Harrenhal, he's in the Godswood right there by this water. he sees himself in this vision, like his dad, like you see him drowning. So that implies, like, the connection with the water. But then going back to what Helena says to Aemond, you will be dead, you'll be swallowed up in the God's Eye, same place we're talking about, and never seen again. And so I just wonder if this is like heavy foreshadowing of some sort of showdown between, I mean, it can't be a coincidence, some sort of showdown between Daemon and Aemon there, like they're all colliding at Harrenhal, at the God's Eye. And I'd love to see some sort of battle on this island with the trees everywhere and them sword fighting and stuff. That'd be very cool.
My gosh, yeah. It'd be awesome. Plus, they've been like leading up to a Damon Aemond battle. I feel like they've kind of
Totally.
played with that this whole time. So I would
Exactly.
love to see that.
I hope it's related, right? I hope it's not just some coincidence and
Yeah.
they both just happen to die or whatever, kind of near where the other one does. Like, I hope it's connected. But the biggest thing I want to ask you all, they've talked in both seasons a lot about the prophecy, the prince that was promised. It was Viserys's big thing. He passed it down to Rhaenyra. We saw her tell Jace. They've just talked about it a lot. It's on the knife. And now we see it. We literally see the White Walkers and the death of the dragons and dragons being reborn with Daenerys. We see all of this in this vision. How do you guys feel about the use of this? Like, they're laying on heavy with this prophecy. What do you think about that?
I'm not I think they're leaning way too much. I'm like, I love Game of Thrones. I'm a diehard fan, but I don't need all of this, like, whether it's fan service, just like I wouldn't need every Star Wars prequel to tell me about the Death Star. Like, I don't need to watch The Acolyte and they somehow mention the Death Star and this and that for every single like Star Wars prequel or everything that takes place before A New Hope. Like, it just seems forced and heavy-handed.
Yeah, I agree. And especially because, like, in Game of Thrones, no one knows what the fuck that is. Like, no one knows the Princess Promised and like the Song of Fire and Ice and like all that stuff. Like, until wait, how does like Daenerys even like how does she come a part of it? Doesn't her like brother kind of mention it or something like that?
I mean,
How does she
well, they're saying basically in this, I mean, what we saw in Daemon's vision, they're essentially telling us that Daenerys is the prince that was promised. She's the one that's gonna stop the long night and the winter and all the shit.
No, I know, but like in actual Game of Thrones, like no one really know. I don't know. It's just like to Brad's point, and I say this a lot. And so thank you, Brad, for like agreeing with like I just think House of Dragon is like so heavy-handed and like do you think that's a way like to your point, this dog is like snoring that I'm watching, sorry. Do you think that's a way because people were so pissed that like we were like, oh, the Prince of Promise, okay, we don't know what the fuck that is, like at the end of Game of Thrones. Like, do you think this was like them just being like, okay, here you go, it's Daenerys, yeah.
Yes, I think they're trying to make up for like a lot of stuff. And I'm like, this could be a good show on its own. Forget it. Like, I don't know. It's like the person that won't let something go. Like, this was good. This is really smart. And now we're gonna make you think that way. Like, just let this be its own show. It was fine season one. They didn't do any of this stuff, and it was a good show.
And
But
they're
I think
mentioning it literally every single episode now. Like it's referenced like that big huge like speech with like Rhaenyra and Jace, and then before that, and then it's like, you know, it's like all these different things that's like, okay, like we don't need to go over this anymore. Even though I like the vision just because like, you know, we are Game of Thrones fans, like so it's like cool to your point, like great visuals. But also too, like I know like Damon has like gone through like this big journey and like, you know, being in like the castle and like being haunted and all this stuff, but that's also a lot of responsibility to put on Damon when I feel I don't know, like that also didn't really make sense to me. That was like he's the one that sees all that. I don't know. It was kind of weird to me.
I mean, I agree with you. I thought it was really cool to see, and I like that they include that. But at the same time, I'm like, why though? Because, okay, there's this like revelation that, yeah, Danny was it. But like how it ended in Game of Thrones, like it amounted to nothing.
that's my problem with it. Every time they brought it up, it kind of made me mad throughout both
Yeah, it's
both
frustrating.
seasons. This was the first time I was like really geeking out about it, but that was just because we saw so many things. Like, I like digging into it, like we just talked about. Um, But yeah, when you really like, so I loved it in this episode, but then when you think about it, it does kind of piss me off because it's like, okay, they're telling us here, this whole prophecy is that Rhaenyra's line, which we see, has to be on the Iron Throne because her descendant will be the one to bring the whole realm together, to unite them against the dark and against the cold and against the White Walkers and defeat them and end the long night, right? But we've seen what actually happens. We've seen hundreds of years into the future, and we see that Daenerys wasn't on the Iron Throne. She didn't unite the realm. Jon Snow did, and she didn't defeat the White Walkers. So like, she wasn't the one to do it. So it's like they're telling on themselves. Like they keep emphasizing the importance of this prophecy, and like it has to be a certain way. It has to be a certain way. But we've already seen that it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, it's so crazy that they're like making it such a big deal in this series because it doesn't matter.
They're gaslighting us. Is what's kind of going on. It's like they're gaslighting us. You don't get it?
I'm not gonna lie though, I'm okay being gaslit because it was so disappointing how that ended to me that like if they can show me something new and make me forget about that and make me think it's important, then like I would rather it that way. Truthfully. Gaslight me anytime you want when it comes to this. I'm fine.
Like between the red pill and the blue pill.
I'll take whatever pill gets me to forget about, about the end of Game of Thrones. But anyway, we can move on past this specific scene in the visions and everything. But we got finally the resolution of Daemon going through everything he did and having the reunion with Rhaenyra. So, did you think that this had a good enough payoff for all the bullshit we saw with Daemon this entire season? Like, what did you think about that scene with Rhaenyra and Daemon coming together? Kate, looks like you want to say something.
I mean, I liked it when it was happening because I was like, hell yeah, like Daemira, we're back, baby. Like, let's go. And then when they're ending and they're like chanting whatever they're chanting, but basically they're all for Rhaenyra, like that was cool. But at the same time, to answer your question, it just seems like we've gone through so much of like nothing really to get to this point that it's like, oh, okay, we didn't really need to like see all that for 10 episodes.
Yeah, but we're not talking about that yet. We're just talking about this one episode.
I did like that scene because everything that leads up to it, because I think was it Brad like a couple episodes ago, you were like, we're not sure if Damon's like going to be like a third faction, in this and like going to try to like raise banners for himself, which this whole season it has been looking that way. And even in this episode, you know what I mean? That the whole reason that she goes there is because that one guy was trying to be shady as fuck, and trying to be like, yo, like, we'll back you if you want to do all this stuff. I really enjoyed seeing them together. They have such great chemistry. The writing for them is really good. But then but then after it's like, then she's just back at Dragonstone and then it's like, they're not like together anymore. Like, I don't know. Like, I liked in the moment, like you're saying, Kate. And I like, it was so funny too. Like Caraxes is like, hell yeah, let's go.
Yeah. He got
here,
really
like,
excited.
That was my favorite part.
Poor thing was just sleeping, like, oh fuck.
And he's like, oh shit, my boys are here, my girl. Somebody tweeted, this person, XOXO Gossip Gita on Twitter, said it took Daemon like 3 months of nonstop nightmares and hallucinations just to respect a woman. Yeah, I mean, I'll say, like, again, I had a higher opinion of this episode, it sounds like, than most of you guys, but I loved it. I like when they talk in High Valyrian together. I thought we saw the whole time it was like he needed to grow, and like I didn't seriously think that he was gonna have his own faction, even though they wanted us to think that. Like I didn't think it was actually gonna go that way. I figured he would fall in line at some point, but I liked how they did it. That one asshole that was trying to go in there and talk to him and to betray Rhaenyra, Sir Alfred Broom. He was like, oh fuck, maybe I made the wrong decision at that moment. But she says, or he says to her, he's like, the world is not what we thought it was. This was just the beginning. Winter is coming. And also seeing somebody that's not a Stark say winter is coming. I enjoyed that. With darkness and doom, I saw it. I saw we can't withstand it, and yet somehow we must. The realm's only hope is a leader who could unite it, and my brother chose you. And just the way he bent the knee, you're the one true queen, all that stuff. Like, I don't know, man. I dug it. I thought it was awesome. I was happy about it. And I wasn't happy that I was happy that she didn't just forgive him. Like, she was still pissed about him. And she's like, yeah, if you leave me again, it'll be at your own peril. And then he gets him, he tries to do the thing that they have together where they like put their foreheads together. And she freaking swerved him real quick. Like, you could tell she's still pissed, which, assert your power, assert your dominance, Ray. But I don't know, man. I thought it was satisfying. I was glad we got through that storyline, and it sucked. We talked about it a million times, but I liked it.
Yeah, that was probably my favorite scene in this episode, I would say.
The Damon one with Rhaenyra.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a good segue then, because there was another big reunion in this episode, which was Rhaenyra and Alicent. So first off, I mean, Emma Darcy and Olivia Cook, they acted their asses off, I thought, in this scene, as they always do. But this is the second scene now where they've kind of reunited together, first at the Sept earlier in the season, and then now at Dragonstone. Neither of these things happened in the books, or at least nobody knows about it in the book. What did you think about the scene?
I was actually surprised. I did not think that they were going to meet again, at least anytime soon. Maybe next season, but like I was surprised. I didn't expect it, and I absolutely love this scene. This was my favorite scene of the episode. I thought it was so good, and like their whole conversation, I was like, that's what I wanted out of finale, like on the edge of my seat, like what's gonna happen. Like I just loved both of their parts in it, and Alicent is just like completely 180. Like she's completely changed. Like it's so crazy to me. I hated her so much at the end of the season and really a lot of season 1. And now I'm kind of like, she kind of gets it now. She had to go through some shit, but she gets it now, and like I kind of respect her a little bit.
Yeah. I agree. I think the scene was really well done. And obviously anytime those characters are together, it's just magic. Like I just love them together. But it's frustrating. Like I was really frustrated because it's like we've already established, like, you know what I mean? Like we've already established that Alicent doesn't have any sway or any power. And like that she goes all the way again to like Dragonstone to like have this conversation again. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like it just feels really redundant to me. And then obviously too, we see that like Aegon is like leaving. So like that's going to be like a whole mess, like in season 3, because she's not going to be able to deliver her promise. So to me, it just was like, we get it. But like also too, like Rhaenyra was saying, it's like, this stuff is already in motion. Like we've already established that. Like there's nothing that we can do. Like, and I don't really trust that you're going to be able to pull this off. Like, so it just, to me, it just seemed like it was just really frustrating because it's just like, yeah, that's just like another thing that's like been beaten like into us like this whole season, I think.
Brad, what do you think about the Alicent and Rhaenyra reunion?
Like it was all right. I like the fact that I don't know if I still trust Alicent. Like I like, and like that.
Did
I'm
you
like,
trust her before?
huh?
Did you trust her before?
No, I just mean in terms of like, it would be really cool if this was like a trap. Like, hey, come on in. Like, I'm like, is this like a red wedding situation where the door is shut behind them and it's like, now we've got you surrounded kind of thing? I like that I kind of feel that way, but I don't know if they want me to, like, I don't know. Everything has just been so like kind of predictable and boring that I'm kind of hoping this is all setting up of like, she thinks she's still going to prove herself and everything's going to change for her because she did this great plan, and will it matter or not?
Yeah, that is going to be interesting to see. Like, I don't know if Rhaenyra trusts it either. And also too, what was crazy is like, she's like, that I have to kill Aegon. Like, that I gotta murk him, like, in order to be able to do this plan that you're saying. And she was just like, okay.
Yeah.
She had to think about it.
Kinda. I mean, for like 3 seconds.
Well, but I mean, she knew what
a terrible
she knew what
person,
needed to be done. She
so-
didn't want to. And like, Rhaenyra said to her, you keep thinking that you'll be able to get everything you want without having to pay the price while I'm over here paying the price. Like,
I love that.
you're not an idiot. This is the cost of what you're asking. And she's like, you're right. I mean, there's nothing I can do about that.
I loved everything that Rhaenyra like said to her because it was everything that I've wanted somebody to say to
Totally.
her face. Like, she talks like, well, you did the same thing as me, sleeping with somebody you're not married. And she's like, yeah, but you're the one who's like holding this up as a banner of your virtue. And
Yeah.
I was just like, yes.
Yeah, I wrote more quotes from this scene than anything else on notes here. I loved how she started it. Like, Rhaenyra was basically like, what are you doing here? And she's like, I've been, I think, mistaken. And it's like, yeah, bitch, what the fuck? Oh, yeah, you have been mistaken. Are you fucking
Understatement
kidding
of
me?
the century.
It's like, you don't say. But then like Allison said, and it made me feel smart, which I enjoy feeling smart. Like the way we talk about their relationship, and we have for a very long time on a number of episodes. Like, Allison said out loud all the things that we were saying when we analyzed their relationship and the things that went on between them. She said, I was raised to believe there's an order to things, that there was security in following the paths laid out for us. I resented you for caring so little for any of it, for knowing what you wanted. I didn't know what I wanted. I only knew what was expected of me. And this is, I think the fundamental change that we see in Alicent is that essentially she has lived her entire life for other people, never thinking about what would be best for her, what she wants. And it kind of shows like that last episode, which I know you guys didn't like that scene of her out in the woods and everything, but she said like getting out of the Red Keep and doing what I wanted for a little bit of time was the first time I've ever done anything for myself. And she's like, now all I want to do is be free, enjoy the open air. Like, I will die with an unmarked grave. Like, I don't care about any of it. I don't care about my legacy. I don't care about anything. I just want to get out of there. And it's the first time she's thought about herself ever in her entire life. So like, did that change anything of like your opinion of that last episode with the wood, with the glamping and all that, or like, nah, it still sucked?
Why didn't she just go do that then? What does she need Rhaenyra for? Go away then.
Because she's also trying, like,
Well, Rhaenyra
it's
says like, what does that have to do with me, basically?
well, I think this is like her last ditch effort to try to do something good and like to do what like Rhaenyra wanted to do in the beginning of the season, which was like, yo, like we can start, like I'm coming to you, like we do not need to go down this path. And then Allison was like, no, fuck off. And it's like, I mean, it's like, again, it's frustrating, but like seeing that arc, she had what was kind of fucked up too, and I guess it just drives home that like Allison really is not a good person. Like, she had to lose all of her power to even think about like all this stuff that has been set in motion, and like these wars, and like these countless lives that are going to be lost, and like, just what they are heading into. And it's like, it's kind of like, fuck off, like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, just go into the woods, yeah, just go away, like, I mean, then just go do it, like, because it's too late. Like, I don't know.
Am
Well,
I
and
the
she
only one, like, this doesn't come up, and I'm the only one that like thought it was weird that Aegon wasn't like, hey, can I take my wife with me while we're going away? Like, how did that not come up? Like, I thought
or
their
his kids.
relationship got stronger
He
this
doesn't care
season, and
about her.
I
I
didn't
was
like
thinking
that.
that. I was thinking that more for like when I saw her, and like at no point was she going to visit him. Like, we never saw her with him ever when he's on his like deathbed and stuff. So I was thinking that too. That was a little weird. But I mean, I know I'm an Allison defender. I know that. I know I probably like her as a character and her storyline more than any of you guys. But I think looking back at the season, and we'll talk more about it next episode on the bonus, but I mean, I think she's the only one that I could think of right now that has an actual concise character arc over the course of this season. Like, she's the only character I could think of that has that. And you, the way, like you said when we started talking about this, Kate, you could tell it's not like bullshit where they're trying to get the viewer to think this person's changed. Have they really earned that? Like, I think she has earned, like, her change has been earned by the arc throughout the season.
What about Cole?
Yeah, maybe Kristen Cole. Maybe Kristen Cole.
It's ironic, those are the two that share time together, the only two that have had an arc.
Yeah, but he just has so much, like, he doesn't have as much depth as her. Like, he's very one-dimensional, and now he's changed. So yeah, that's an arc, but there's not as much to it as it is with Allison, in my opinion. Overall, in this scene, I did also really like it, but I wished that first one of Rhaenyra sneaking into the Sept earlier in the season, I wish that didn't happen. Because if that never happened, and then all of a sudden this happened, she sneaks there, it would have made it so much more impactful. A lot of, like, the conversation isn't the same, but like they're both similar, where they're trying to figure out how to stave off this mass casualties and save lives. And I know they're at different places when both these conversations happen, but I really wish the first one didn't happen.
That's a great point.
Yeah, that is a good point. Especially because I do think this conversation was better, was just like more deep. Like obviously you have Allison who's changed, but I do think like the way that Emma Darcy played it is like she there's a part of her that wants to just go off and be with Allison and just live in the woods.
He
I
threw it
think.
out there with her.
Yeah, she threw it out
Yeah.
and she was like, I can't do that even if I wanted to. And so that kind of makes me think like there is a part of her that wants to do that. And I just thought that was like cool that there was that little snippet and that
I
they
like
were
that too.
able to portray that.
I actually was kind of shocked at the direction that the conversation went. When I first saw Allison, I thought it was like she was like, I'm supporting you now. I'm here. Like, you know, what I mean? I thought that's what she was gonna do. And that's she was like, I want to make this right by like being with you and supporting you here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I was really surprised at like the plan that she came up with, that obviously even if Aegon was still there, I don't think it would work, but
I don't think it. I mean, her entire thing was that she loved her family and she supported her family because that was her duty. It would have been way too drastic if she's like, you know what, fuck them, like I'm here now. Like I wouldn't have believed that.
But I mean, earlier, I mean, if she would have showed up with Helena, would you have believed it? Because she was like, Helena, like, let's get out of here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, do you think
I
she?
would have believed that more. I would
Okay.
have believed that more.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
That makes sense.
Well, you brought up Sir Kristen, and I'll say this scene with Sir Kristen was probably my favorite scene involving Sir Kristen, probably the entire series. Because we see again some depth to him. We see I don't know, him reflecting on some things. But he has the confrontation with your boy Gwaine. And also he said some real shit. He goes, do not think I have no shame in me, sir. My desire for women has brought me grief after grief. And I'm like, true that, my guy, true that.
Oh, I feel you.
But I mean, he's just like, he's down bad. He knows, he said what, that we march towards our annihilation. To die will be a relief. Like, he knows his time is limited, and it kind of sucks as a viewer because this entire time, all of us are like, fuck Kristen Cole. Like, I can't wait to watch this asshole die. And now that he like wants to die, I'm like, fuck. Like, it like
Keep him
takes away
alive.
from like when it will happen.
I felt bad for him. I was like, my
Yeah.
man's is really depressed.
Yeah.
Like that was a depressing conversation. I felt a little bad.
Need some Lexapro or something.
But I also like, you know, when he first came back from that battle, and we were saying then he just seems like real fucked up. Like, what's going on with him? Like, but yeah, you just see, I mean, the dragons dance, men are like dust under their feet. Nothing even matters. Like, you saw what I saw, and just like, I like, because it would have been again unrealistic if they saw this shit. People are turning into ash everywhere, like just wanting death. Doesn't fucking matter what side you are. Everyone's getting burnt up. Like, for that to not affect you at all, that would be unrealistic. So I like that they're showing him like this.
And I love that quote. That was so good. And it's just like so encompassing of a lot of this whole conflict.
Yeah. Yep. Anything else about Kristen?
I'm glad his bowl cut is growing in.
Yeah, it doesn't look as terrible, but he's also just sweaty. I don't know, man. I just feel bad for the dude a little bit now. Well, moving on to a few things that I did not like about this episode. They spent a lot of time with Sir Tyland Lannister and the Triarchy.
Yes.
Obviously,
I was so mad about this.
like, it's an important story point, you would think. Like, now there's a whole fleet of ships that are gonna be a foil to the good guys in Team Black. So like that is important. We need to see that happen. But like they spent a lot of like I did not need to see this asshole mud wrestling with that chick. Like
Me and Brad were sitting there, and Brad turned to me and he said, "What are we doing here?"
I
And I was
know.
like, I literally don't know. What is this?
It was so funny too. Like we were like, what the fuck is going on? Why are we doing this? And then on Inside the Thrones, like after the episode, they were like, we wanted to do this and have some fun. We're like,
No
no,
one liked
it
that.
wasn't fun. And no, it wasn't enjoyable. Like it was stupid.
And
It-
It
also,
made me sorry, I was just gonna say with the after the Thrones or whatever the after show, it made me mad when they said that. Like, we just did it for some levity. And I'm like, no one watches this show for like happy, funny levity.
well,
for shits and gigs, bruh.
I think what it
No.
is that Game of Thrones had that. Like Game of Thrones had everything. Like they had the epic moments, you had the really character building moments, you had the funny, like the Tyrion funny things, him and Braun, what's his name, Podrick Payne, like getting hookers for him, and they're all making fun of his like the tripod. There was a lot of funny moments in Game of Thrones, which like made it so well rounded. And House of the Dragon doesn't really have that. So maybe they're just like really trying to hey, let's like try to get some of that Game of Thrones feel by adding a little humor here and there. And it's like that did
Why do it in
absolutely
the
did not work.
finale?
Well, also
Yeah.
true.
And
Also true.
also that character, like, it was just really, her character was really annoying. And it doesn't make sense to me. Like, Tyland looks stupid. Like, I don't think he proved himself at all. What, he punched her once? Okay. Like, so now she's like, I want you to have my babies. And like, I want you to fuck all my wives. And I'm going to set sail with all these sailors that I got. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just, it
It's weird.
fell really flat to
The
me.
only thing I could think of is that like she was going to do it anyway. Like they basically forced her to. They made this arrangement already, and like all of that was just to fuck with him and see if they could get him to sing and see if they could get him to get himself dirty because he's this like lord who is super rich and wouldn't normally put himself in that position. And they were literally just fucking with him the whole time, even though they were going to do it. But even then, it still was stupid.
Yeah, it was way too long. It was
We
way too
eat
long.
people. No, we don't. Ah ha ha ha. Like we're having a grand old time. Like I'm good. Like and what's up, like the show proves like it can be funny at times. Like I don't get why they were trying to shoehorn it in. Like with like Lannister earlier this season when he was with like Aegon's son and he
Yeah,
was
that was funny.
like a pony. Like that was so it almost seemed like they were like, man, this guy is comedic gold right here. We'll write a whole storyline and have him mud wrestle a woman, and it'll be hilarious. Like let it go. Like it was like just so forced in there.
Yeah, and if it was one scene and he was negotiating and it was, you know, they were being assholes about it, but finally like they agreed, even though they made him look stupid, good, because that's going to be important later, I know. But like, man, they spent so much time there this episode.
It was a lot.
The only other couple things I got on this episode, we have Corliss. He talks about renaming his ship to honor Rhaenys. Cool. The scene where Alan kind of confronts Corliss, though, like I thought that was really good, especially, you know, if you're somebody that maybe doesn't have the best relationship with your parents, you want to just like maybe confront them and like tell them all the shit that like maybe they put you through as a kid and how that affects you and like you know, let the deadbeat dad know what's up. So I liked that a lot. But I also just really like Corliss. Like I think he's so commanding, and so every scene that he's in, no matter where it is or who it's with, I'm just super invested into it. Um, and then we've got the Dragon Riders. The other thing that I liked the least about the episode was just Ulf in general. Like I think they laid it on way too thick with just like how disrespectful he was, like in multiple scenes. Like he couldn't even just like try to play cool, and like you could still see that side of him that oh, he might be a little bit of a wild card, not sure, keep us guessing a little. Like they were just so blatant with like this guy's obviously going to be a problem. We get it. But yeah, he was, and there was a lot of it too. Multiple scenes, just ugh.
Yeah.
Yes, that was
Once we
very
get it.
annoying.
Yeah. Well, that leads to kind of the montage at the end, which is essentially the montage was like a trailer for season 3, in my opinion. The music was the fucking best. It was like just so epic, and every time they went from character to character, they seamlessly transitioned to like the theme song of that character or that house. Like you got some of the Stark theme as they're marching on at the twins. Then it goes to the Casterly or the what is it, the Lannister theme, what is it called?
Reigns of Castamere.
Reigns of Cat. Thank you. Reigns of Castamere was in there. The Targaryen theme was in. Like all of it was just like woven so perfectly together, and it just was so epic with to match all the things we were seeing. So that was just sick. The Dragon Rider suiting up. The armies marching. We see Prince Darren and Tessarion for the first time. We got Starks. We got Lannisters. We see Otto imprisoned. No idea where that's gonna go. Yeah, it was very cool. Like I loved seeing that, but I guess that's what made it a finale.
I'm not saying this as a Greyjoy stan, but like, where are the Greyjoys? Like, why do they keep referencing them and they haven't been in it? And they're not like the one who's gonna put it all over. It seems really weird that they keep bringing up like wherever the Greyjoys line up, wherever the Greyjoy. I'm like, even once they appear, is that gonna be what like tips the scales? I don't get why they keep doing that.
Well, the only thing I could think of is that they're establishing them, that they're out there and they have a navy. And then when the Triarchy comes in, they're going to fuck up Corlys and all them. And then Rhaenyra's team, which looks to be the heavy favorite now, is going to be desperate. And then they're going to have to turn to the Greyjoys. Is like, that's the only thing I can think.
Okay. Yeah, it just seems like weird. I thought they were gonna maybe come in at the end or something. Like, oh damn, they recruited them. Like, we just keep getting like mentions, and I'm like, I don't get what the payoff is gonna be.
Yeah, we'll see how they do it in season 3, but I guess we'll wait 2 years to see your boys, the Greyjoys. Well, all right, let's go from the episode as a whole to our awards, starting with the MVP, most valuable player. I've got 2, but I'm curious what you guys think first, starting with you, Kate.
I bet we have one of the same ones. My first one.
We usually do.
My dude, Sir Simon. He killed it this episode. He saw some treachery happening and he was like, oh, hell no. I gotta let my girl know. So he did. And then that's what finally got her out there, which was great. But more than that, just his facial expressions, the clapping when they were all kneeling, I was like, I love this man. I want more of Sir Simon. So I don't know if he would be in season 3, but I kind of hope they find a spot for him.
By far, that dude does the most with the least.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like that guy.
Good way to put it.
That guy is awesome.
He killed it. And then my other one was just Rhaenyra, just because, like you just said, it seems like she's got everything going for her right now. She's got all the momentum. She's got almost all of the dragons. She's got some good stuff coming her way. So I feel good about her going into season 3. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, she's got all the dragons.
Yeah.
She now also has a way to take the throne without bloodshed. She has the large army in the Riverlands, so she has a bigger army now than the other team has. She got closure with Alicent, and she repaired things with Daemon. So, like, I don't know how you could not consider her to be an MVP in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you got, Brad? I feel like you're gonna come with something hot right now.
No, you mentioned like the only thing I really like loved about this episode was you mentioned our boy Ramin Djawadi. Like, you know, I mean, just the score in this episode was, you know, going back to a lot of the Game of Thrones stuff, but just overall, like he held this episode kind of together from it being like way worse. Like, I know I'm way more down on it, like, but to me, he was like a saving grace of what could have been a lot more of like just a catastrophe to me.
Ooh, a catastrophe. That is strong, man. Damn.
Yeah.
In an episode that has 2 really big and important scenes, one with Rhaenyra and Daemon, one with Rhaenyra and Alicent. I don't know how it could be that bad just on the back of those 2 scenes. But okay, MVP Kelsey.
I agree 100% with what Brad and Kay said. And then I think for consideration, Helena could be an MVP.
That's my other one too.
In this episode. I mean, you see her actually standing up for herself, like, you know what I mean? And like, there's like a clear purpose for her visions. And like, I thought the vision, like, even though we were like kind of shitting on it earlier, the visions were cool and like it's awesome to see her power like that. So in addition to the ones that we've already said, I would say Helena.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I got Helena and Rhaenyra, definitely as MVP. So with all the winners, there's got to be losers. Let's go to LVP. To me, there's one, and it's obvious. But let's stay with you, Kelsey. Who's your LVP?
Oh God, get off of my screen.
Dude.
Ulf was so annoying. Well, and then also too, like I would say like the pirate lady, like the pirate ship lady. They both were so fucking annoying to me. I'm like, get off of my screen, please. Ugh.
What about you, Kate? Who's your LVP?
I also had Ulf because he was just freaking awful. And I'm like, dude, we are fighting a war here. Like, you need to get in line, like, learn your Valyrian, like, let's go. Like, people's lives are at stake. You can't just be like asking for more chickens or whatever. Like, get out of here.
I'll take more of the small birds.
The small birds, whatever. I don't know.
And also,
then,
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna like go in on Ulf a little bit more. Like,
that's fine.
Yeah, he's kind of like a weird like jesty character, I guess, if we want to keep with the vocabulary that they use this episode. But like, they didn't set him up like to be that bad. Like, you know what I mean? Like, even as he was like going to like get like the dragon and was like in line and stuff, like they didn't set him up like that. So it was like really weird. I really fucking hated it. Sorry, Kate, I did not mean to interrupt you.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say then, secondly, I just had the Thailand storyline, which we already talked about. But I would also add in Rhaena's storyline. I'm a little sick of seeing her wander around the Vale.
Dude, I counted 5 different times. They went back for like 30 seconds each of just like her running a little bit and then her getting water and then her like 5 different times seeing her trying to find this drag. Like it's either like A, we get it. She's going to claim the dragon. I don't need to see all of that. Or B, if not, then what the fuck is she doing? Like,
yes,
yeah, totally.
And also,
Did you
like,
not notice she was running faster and faster though each time they cut to her? Like she was like getting faster each time, which made it a lot more exciting.
It's the Olympic time, so you know. Well, and also too, like going back to like what we said last episode, like how does no one know that she's gone? Like she's just like she's miles and miles away from everything, freezing cold, like freezing at night, drinking water that's probably gonna make you sick, like, and all those people that are supposed to like protect her. She's a princess. Like, I don't know, it's whatever. It's so annoying.
Who do you got as your LVP, Brad?
Man, we could go on and on, but I mean, yeah, I don't know. I got lack of payoff, but we could talk about that more when we do our season recap because I get that's going to be like more of a season recap thing. But like, I have a lot of problems with like the strategy of stuff, and maybe you guys can like correct me if I'm missing something. First, I don't get the whole why we're having a battle at sea. One side has a ton of dragons. What can't they just take a fleet out? Like, are pirates going to do anything against a dragon? They don't have scorpions. They don't have anything. I don't get why even bother to have this battle at sea. Like, it would take them swooping over with the dragons, wipe out a fleet. That's done. So, like, little things like that keep bugging me. And then, like, Vagar, I'm like, he's a big ass dragon. Like, shoot scorpions up at him. Like, they've hit smaller like there's just like a lot of like weird like I don't want to say loopholes but things like from a battle standpoint that I'm like why are they worrying about this, like why are they concerning like who's gonna win the battle at sea when it seems like that could be decided pretty quickly.
We're definitely going to get that big battle at sea next season, so in 2 years we'll be able to figure out if that's a valid point or not. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess that then really your argument is why the blockade has been hurting the Greens this entire season. Why hasn't Vagar just gone there and destroyed the blockade in episode 1?
Yeah, like it seems like it'd be better if there were like reasons for all of this. Like, you know, the whole reason Daenerys didn't want to just go in the King's Landing is she's like, I don't want innocent people to die. Like, I need like a little bit of something of, oh, okay, that's why you're not doing it this way. But it seems like there's just a lot of things that we're just supposed to excuse and be like, yeah, I don't know why they're not doing it the way that makes the most sense, but okay, I'll just not worry about it. Like, it seems like they want us to have a lot more passes, like with that kind of stuff.
I mean, that's definitely interesting. I have nothing to say in terms of how to defend that. I don't know. It sounds like a good point.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I wasn't missing something. Well, dumbass, like they can't do that because of XYZ.
Well, I mean, they haven't had a navy. The Greens haven't had a navy until now. But the question of why Vagar wasn't just sent there immediately, especially when, like, after Maylis died, like the blacks only had like little dragons left, so they couldn't defend that anyway. So if they would have sent Vagar to just burn up all the boats, I don't know, for sure.
Point.
I'm surprised none of you guys said Amond as the LVP, because that was my obvious one. In this episode, like I've put him as a MVP in multiple episodes this season, but this episode was an obvious LVP for me. I mean, he's losing his shit. He knows he's no longer invincible. He's lashing out. He's killing full towns full of people. He wants to further starve the small folk by cutting off the ships. But then he gets dragged by his mom and by his sister. His plans to kill his brother Aegon are foiled because Larys sneaks him out. Just like he's just taking losses all over the place. He doesn't know what he's doing, and he just looks like weak. He just looks weak at this point. So he's my LVP. But it's funny, a lot of the things you guys said as LVP, I had that in my cringe moment category. So Kelsey, I'll just keep looking at you here for the cringiest moment of the episode. Who gets that award for you, or what gets that award?
Oh, I mean, Kate mentioned it, that whole Thailand or Tyron or whatever, she called him like 20 different names. That whole storyline was like so cringy. I hated it. Ulf was cringy, obviously. But I would also say too, like, I don't like the interactions between, what's his name? Gwen. I don't like the interactions between Gwen and Kristen, because like it's just, to me, it's like annoying. Like he's like, you love my sister, or like whatever. It's like he's like smelling the fucking like napkin and stuff. Like what Kristen said was like great, and like it ended up being like an okay like scene. But I don't like their interactions together. I never have this whole the whole season, but that was pretty cringy to me.
Yeah, that handkerchief was on her titties, so he's just smelling it. You know, you're not thinking about that.
Well, that thing probably smells like his ball sack now, because it's been like in his like gross.
What do you got as your cringe, Kate?
I mean, you mentioned it already briefly, but Aegon's penis exploding.
Yeah, that was mine.
Like, what? Like, you can't pee?
He said, my dragon is dead. I'm burnt and disgusting and alone. I'm a cripple. And then he said his dick burst into flames like a sausage on the spit. And he said he can't even piss without it running down his leg. I'm like, bro, it's over for you, my guy. It's fucking done. Like, what? Like, don't go with Larys. Just don't. Just throw yourself off the fucking window like Tommen did, or like something, or let Aegon or Aemon kill. It's over, bro. What are you doing? Like a sausage on the spit.
And it was so funny, like every time like Larys was trying to say something of like, we can go here, and then like he's like coming up with like all this plan, like laying out like the path for him. In between, he just keeps talking about his penis. He just keeps saying more and more stuff about it.
He's talking about his dick, and then Larys is like, well, we could go to Ace. So he goes, oh, you want me to go with the goat fuckers? Like, dude, you are never change, Aegon, never change. But yeah, my cringe totally was the Aegon thing. I also had the Ulf thing that we've talked about, and I had the mud fight that we've also talked about. All that was cringe for me. But yeah. Well, anyway, like I said, we're coming back with more thoughts on the season soon. But do you guys have any final thoughts or anything else that you'd like to talk about this episode?
The only other thing that like really struck me was the like 2 seconds that they gave Otto. I was like, what happened to him?
Me too.
Like that was like so crazy. And I actually, for a second, they like did Alicent coming out from talking with Rhaenyra, and then they showed him right away. I almost thought like, oh, Otto's there and this is a trap and they're working together. But then it wasn't that. He was just in a jail cell somewhere. I don't know. That was crazy.
Yeah, that was the first one where I was like, because that whole sequence was pretty hype, but then you see that and you're like, oh, damn. Like that reminded me of some Game of Thrones thing where things you haven't seen in a while, then you get a quick glimpse and you're just like, oh, damn, like something big is going on. I want to know what it is. Like that reminded me very much of Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm. And I will just say, I'm just really proud of Damon this episode that like he did all that stuff. That was like, yeah, that was like awesome. That was my favorite part. And like, yeah, he's back. Daddy Damon is back and I love it.
We needed it, man. Like having
Yeah.
probably the most compelling character of the whole first season just get like shelved essentially for the entire second season just was, I don't think, a great move from the showrunner standpoint, but you know, whatever. That's all I got. But all right, guys, thank you so much for recapping this. That is going to do it for this episode of the Geek and You Shall Find podcast. Like I said, have no fear. We will be back next week for a bonus episode on all of season 2 of House of the Dragon. We're going to give out the season-long awards. We're talking MVPs and LVPs of the season, but we're also talking about things like our favorite scenes, Rookie of the Year, things like that. As always, please make sure to subscribe. It's youtube.com/superherofaces, as well as follow on all of the podcasting platforms. And if you want to do us a favor, please hit the little bell icon. It will let you be notified whenever we're dropping content. And hit the little thumbs up on the video because, you know, the algorithm, every time you do that, it really, really helps. And the more people that like it and engage and comment and subscribe, all that good stuff, the more likely we will be to be pushed out there so more people can see the stuff that we're doing. So thank you so much again. Look out for the next week's episode and we'll see you next time. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Geek and You Shall Find podcast, powered by Superhero Faces. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Superhero Faces. And on Instagram at Superhero_Faces.